Okay, we are back for show number 2 tonight. Show number 2, we're going to have Mike Walter talking about his new project he's doing, and he'll talk more about it. But if you've been following him on Facebook, you're seeing daily posts from him about things that happen. Well, you know what? We're going to let him talk about that. But in show number 2 tonight, we've got Mike talking about his little new project here for the industry. Let's jump right to tonight's show. Well, first off, we're going to hear from our sponsors. Then we're going to jump to tonight's show. One sec.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Top Hits USA from RPM. Our name says it all. Get the latest hits while they're the hottest. With Top Hits USA, you'll have the track for sure. Visit tophitsusa.com or call 800-521-2537 and get a free demo.
So in this session, we're going to be talking a little bit about one of Mike's passions. This is Mike Walter here from Elite. Mike, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, John.
Now, I've been watching for a number of weeks or maybe even months this summer, but you have really been putting a lot of effort into doing kind of a daily blog post, Facebook post, talking about this day in music. And I don't know if you've got a title for this little category, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that.
So it kind of came about earlier in the year when David Bowie died. And I had just read a book about Bowie. I read a lot of books about music artists and music genres and things like that. So I had just read a book a year ago about David Bowie. And when he passed, on that day that he passed, I put up a couple of, maybe 3 or 4 paragraph type stories about different songs that he had been involved with and written and stuff like that. And I got a lot of cool feedback from that. People were like, oh, that was interesting. Thanks for sharing that type of stuff. And then sometime this spring, so it was a couple months later, I put up a post. I just happened to see that a song had come out on this date, back in like 1975, whatever. I don't remember the specific song. And I put up hey, on this date in such and such a year, this happened. And I told a little story. And again, I got some really good, people were like, that was cool. Thanks for doing that. So I would say early June, I started putting up almost daily. At that point, it wasn't every day. I would put up a post, and then maybe 2 days later, I'd put up another post. And certainly by July 1st, but I think by mid-June, I started getting really disciplined and saying, I'm going to do one of these a day. And I'm going to try to do one of these a day for an entire year, because one of my goals was to fill up my own timeline. I don't know if you get this on Facebook, John, but I must have signed up for this thing a while back where Facebook reminds me every day what happened on this date last year and 2 years ago and 4 years ago. So I thought if I could do this for an entire year, if nothing else, I would then have this treasure trove of stories that I've written and researched every day. Yeah. So I really started doing it with that as an initial goal. And then so many people in the industry have written to me either publicly on Facebook or privately and said, Mike, I'm really enjoying these things. Please keep them going. And so that's been a motivation. And now I'm actually considering, again, if I can get a whole year out of it, if I can stay motivated and keep doing this, that I might try to turn this into a book. Because I think that there is a potential for a book here, and not just a book for the DJ industry, but a book for, for any music lover that would get this, where there'd be 366 stories, one on each day of something that happened on this day. And so that's my ultimate goal here.
So now what are you using for resources? Because I'm a big fan of these little posts and such, and you've got some incredible information in these.
Yeah, God, there's so much information that's available on the internet. Not that I'm telling anybody they don't know, but Billboard.com has basically every chart going back to the beginning of their chart history. You can look up on any given, Billboard does weekly charts. So you can look up on any given week. Let's say you want to go this week in 1962. You can see what the top 10 is. You can see what albums were in the top, whatever. So that's been an incredible resource, because what I try to do is start every one of these posts on this date in whatever year this song went to number one, or this song peaked at number 5, or this album went to number 1, that type of thing. I'm trying to give it some significance of why I'm telling the story on this date.
Sure.
Wikipedia tells a lot of different stories. And then I also try to find contemporary articles. A lot of newspapers have put their entire back catalog of articles up online. So, sometimes I'll read the LA Times review of a song that came out in, 1972. And I'm able to track down, the LA Times review, or the LA Times, or the New York Times telling a story about this incident. So I usually do a little research and then decide what I want to write about on that day. At this point, I'm about a month out, which is actually getting more into, I've already written all of September right now.
Wow.
Which gets interesting to me, because tomorrow, the post that I'm going to put up tomorrow, I just read it again today. I proofread it and tweaked a few things, but it's a post that I wrote about 3 weeks ago. So I'm actually almost kind of refreshing my memory on some of these facts and kind of reminding myself of these stories. So yeah, I pick what story I want to tell. I research it, and then I have to find something interesting, though. That's the thing. There have been a couple songs that I've wanted to write about, and I've researched it and gone, yeah, there's really nothing there. There's no hook. There's nothing that, to me, makes it interesting to tell the story. I don't want to just be like, on this date in 1975, this song was number 1.
Right.
Okay. Well, is there an interesting backstory to the song? And if so, then I do my best to tell that story.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you're putting into with the research and such? I mean, this is something like a lot.
Maybe one of the reasons why I had to give up DJ of the Year. No, I'm only kidding. I'd say each story that I write, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. I research it, I read about it, and then I write it. As you know, because I've been writing for you for how long now, John? I do have the gift of gab when it comes to, typing. And I can usually, once I know the story I'm going to tell, I can usually blurt it out and get 4 or 5 paragraphs done in a little bit. And then my routine now is then I just put it away. And then the day before I'm going to post it, that's when I break it out again and proofread it and maybe tweak it and clean up some of the language and stuff and just make it ready for publication, if you will. And then every morning, my routine is over my coffee every morning. I find a couple of photos that will go along with the story, and then I post it. And you asked me if I have a name. I don't at this point, but if anyone is interested in not following it, if you want to use the hashtag Today in Music, I know it was funny, Casey Kokoris made a comment this year at the DJ Expo that nobody uses hashtags on Facebook. Well, I do, because I've been using that hashtag. Obviously, these stories are way too long to tell on Twitter, so I've been using my Facebook page as a kind of a place to store all these stories. So if you want to use the hashtag Today in Music, you'll find pretty much all my posts going back to, like I said, probably mid-June.
Very nice. And all you guys have to do is go up there and you type that into the search box up above, and it'll get you there.
Yep.
Let's talk about some of your favorite stories that you have run across so far. I'm sure you've got a few. So let's start. Actually, let's do 2 phases. I want to talk about your favorite artist that you may feature more than once.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about some of your favorite stories. So whichever one you want to take first.
You know what? I'll start, since you set it up that way. I'll start by telling a Prince story. 1983, Prince is on tour. He's touring, supporting his 1999 album, but he's also preparing work for the movie he's going to make, which at that point doesn't even have a title to it. I think it was originally called Dreams. The first script of the movie was Dreams. And so he's writing music, and he knows he wants this album to be the huge commercial success that he hadn't had at that point. I mean, Prince, 1999 was a big album for him, and Little Red Corvette, I think, was a top 10, but he hadn't had a number one by that point, and he was really eager to break out. The stories that Prince was always jealous of Michael Jackson are fairly true. He always looked at Michael Jackson as, that guy's bigger than I am, and I want to be as big as he is on the pop. So he's on tour. And his tour happens to be following Bob Seger's tour around the country, which happens a lot. Geographically, they try to set these tours up so they make sense. You go to one city, you go to the next city. And so his tour was just a couple of days behind Bob Seger's. So he would roll into a town and they'd still be talking about the Seger show from 2 nights ago, something like that. And so at one point, he's sitting around with his bandmates. And he says, I don't really get the whole Bob Seger thing. I've listened to his music, and I just don't feel it. It's just, I don't see why he has such a avid following. And one of Prince's bandmates said to him, it's because Bob Seger writes anthems. It's because he writes anthems. And Prince thought about that. And he said, you know what? I need my own anthem. And he sat down and he wrote Purple Rain. So if it hadn't been for that conversation, and it hadn't been for Prince thinking, I need that song that's going to raise the rafters at my concerts and allow me to wail on my guitar and really, the lighter type song.
Yep.
If it hadn't been for Prince being motivated to write that kind of song, but based on that conversation, Purple Rain probably doesn't come about. That's one of those stories that, to me, and I've read that in multiple books about Prince, because I've read pretty much every biography that's ever been written. That's one of those stories that I just go, man, one conversation got a ball rolling, and Prince writes what that's got to be his most iconic song, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
when he died, wasn't that the song that every artist did in concert as a tribute to him? So, I mean, that's his signature song, if you will, and it came out about just on that conversation.
Wow. Just because of following Bob Seger.
Yeah, right.
On tour,
or happen to be following his, Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Very
those
cool.
are the types of stories I love to tell, and they fascinate me. And what I'm finding out is that they fascinate a lot of people who are music lovers. And again, not just DJs. I'm connected with a lot of people on Facebook who aren't in our industry, and they also are telling me, man, I love these stories that you're telling. So there's an audience for this type of stuff out there.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's progress now. There's got to be a non-Prince story.
There are plenty. I'm actually doing my best not to tell too many. Somebody hit me up recently, and it was the date that Purple Rain, the album, had gone to number one, and they were like, "I can't believe you didn't use this one today." And first of all, I told a Purple Rain story a couple months ago, and I'm doing my best not to fill up with too many Prince. I could probably do every day of the year a Prince story, but I'm not gonna bore everybody with that kind of stuff. So I mean, you asked me to prepare some of my favorite stories. Some of these I've written about, or also I don't know if you remember, but a couple years ago I did a few seminars about this too. I was calling them "Let the Music Play."
Yep.
And I did 2 seminars in a row, 2 years in a row at DJ Times, where I basically just tried to tell some of these stories. Again, stories that I've always found fascinating, and that I'm discovering that people find fascinating. So we'll start with a song that we all use, the Beatles version of "Twist and Shout." So the Beatles got signed, and I'm only glancing down to look at dates right now because I want to make sure I get the dates right. So the Beatles get signed in England to Parlophone Records, 1962.
Sure.
They released "Love Me Do," which doesn't really do too well when it was initially released. It would go to number one later, but when it was initially released in the UK, it didn't really do too well. January of 1963, they released the second single, "Please Please Me." That goes to number one in the UK. So now Parlophone is like, we need more material. We want a whole album. February 11th, 1963, the Beatles get together in the studio, Abbey Road studio, with George Martin producing. They record 11 songs in one day in a marathon 13-hour session they record 11 songs to complete their first album. One of the songs they want to do, the Beatles are famous for writing their own music. They're one of the first bands, rock bands especially, to write their own music. But one of the songs they want to do is Twist and Shout, which, as you know, is a cover version Isley Brothers had already done. But they used to do that song live, and it was a lot of times it was their show closer, and they loved doing it, so they wanted that song on the album. But the problem is, John Lennon's the lead singer of that song, and he had shown up that day with a scratchy throat. So he already had like a little bit of a sore throat. They do this 13-hour session. They record 11 songs. Finally, George Martin says, what about this Twist and Shout? Do you want to do it? And John Lennon says, I probably only have one take in me because of this throat, and it's going to sound scratchy. They do it in one take. They record it in one take. And that's why if you go back and listen to Twist and Shout, John Lennon is not using an affect there. He's not trying to make his voice sound scratchy or different than he really had a sore throat that day. And it was the end of a 13-hour session. And he was basically able to rip through in one take. And that's the version of Twist and Shout that we all play, right? I mean, I don't play the Isley Brothers version. I play the Beatles, and it's the home run version. And the only reason it sounds the way it did was because of Lennon's throat that day.
In one take.
In one take.
Wow.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wonderful Tonight. Eric Clapton. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. So Eric Clapton is dating Pattie Boyd by this point. It's 1976, which that in and of itself, the backstory there is fascinating because Pattie Boyd was married to George Harrison when he was with the Beatles. And that's how Clapton met Pattie Boyd and basically fell in love with her. Clapton broke the man code. He fell in love with his friend's wife. Never acted on that. Always just loved her from afar. It was, what they call an unrequited love. Mm-hmm. Actually wrote a couple songs about Pattie Boyd. Layla is written about Pattie Boyd. He used Pattie Boyd as his inspiration. So George Harrison and Pattie Boyd break up. Clapton moves in, and now Pattie Boyd is living with Eric Clapton. And the reason we know the date is because Eric Clapton and Pattie Boyd were planning on going to a party that Paul McCartney was throwing. September 7th, 1976. And John, you and I have been in this situation. Almost every guy has been in this situation. You're waiting to go out. You're all ready to go. The car's warming up outside. And the wife, or in Eric Clapton's case, the girlfriend, is taking forever to get ready. She's trying on different outfits. She's fixing her hair, everything like that. What do we do as guys? We sit down and read a book, or we fool around on the internet. We look at Facebook for 20 minutes. Clapton takes out his guitar, starts strumming, and just sings what's happening. It's late in the evening. She wonders what clothes to wear, puts on her makeup, fixes her long blonde hair. By the time Pattie Boyd comes downstairs and said, all right, Eric, I'm ready to go, he goes, oh, hold on. and he plays her the song, and she's blown away by it. And that's how, Wonderful Tonight is one of the most iconic love songs of all time. And that's how, if Pattie Boyd had gotten ready sooner that night, the world would not have Wonderful Tonight. Isn't that an amazing story?
Wow, very cool.
I love that. I love that.
Neat story.
Yep. Yeah. Time for more?
Yeah, we got a couple more, and then we'll wrap it up.
This one isn't a how a song got created, but it's a why we know of a song so well. I love this story. So 1977, John Travolta is hired to star in Saturday Night Fever. And part of the prep work, obviously, was to, give him dance lessons. He was already a good dancer. Travolta was one of those multi-talented. He could sing, he could dance, he could act. But they wanted him to learn disco dancing, per se. So they give him a copy of the Bee Gees song, You Should Be Dancing, which actually had already been a big hit in 1976. It was one of those early disco songs that really, I think it was a number one hit, if I remember. So he practices and learns his dance routines to You Should Be Dancing. Meanwhile, the Bee Gees are hired to write music for Saturday Night Fever. So they write a couple songs, including the song Night Fever. Saturday Night Fever, Night Fever. They wrote that song specifically for the movie and specifically to be used in that early dance scene that takes place, I think, in the first 15 minutes of the movie. So the day comes for them to shoot that scene, and John Travolta, who I think at that point is 20 years old, okay, so he's not exactly a movie star that can kind of throw his weight around the set. They say, okay, you're going to be dancing to this song Night Fever. Travolta says, no way. He goes, You Should Be Dancing is the better song. We should use You Should Be Dancing in this scene instead of Night Fever.
Mhm.
He makes such a big deal about it that the director finally goes, okay, we'll use You Should Be Dancing. And I don't know about you, but in my opinion, You Should Be Dancing is such a better song than Night Fever. So this young kid made that call. And the only reason he did was that he had been practicing with You Should Be Dancing for the last couple months, learning his routine. He was the one that said, no, let's use that over Night Fever. And that scene becomes, one of the iconic scenes of all time. When you see John Travolta dancing on that light up dance floor with the white suit, I mean, everybody knows, where that is. And that was and it was because he chose that song,
Interesting.
Yeah. I've got a more modern one. I'm actually I'm posting this story, I think, in 3 days. So I'll give you a little preview.
Ah, cool.
Carly Rae Jepsen, she writes a song called Call Me Maybe. And her first album, she was kind of like a folk artist. So she writes a song, Call Me Maybe, as a folk song. It's a guitar-driven, almost folksy kind of song. Her producer, Josh Ramsey, is the one that says, you know what? I think this song has pop potential. Why don't we give it a little bit more of a dance kind of feel to it? So they totally do a new arrangement, and they come up with the arrangement that we know of Call Me Maybe. The song is released in September of 2001. She's a Canadian, and it sells a little bit. I think it hit 35, on the charts in Canada. Nothing in the States. It went completely ignored in the States until December of that year. Did I say 01? I meant 11. 2011.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was trying to do the math. Wait a second. No, it had to have been
2011. Much more modern than that.
Yep.
So September 2011, she releases the song. It goes nowhere. December of that year, Justin Bieber tweets about the song. Justin Bieber has how many millions of followers, right?
Yep.
He tweets that he's loving Carly Rae Jepsen. Now, at that point, the world has never even heard of this singer. Justin Bieber tweets about her, and the song starts gaining traction. His management team then signs Carly Rae Jepsen to a management deal. The song starts going up and up and up, and finally in June of 2012, it hits number one, spends 9 weeks at number one. So if it's not for the producer who hears the song and says, I don't know if that's a folk song, Carly, I think it's more of a pop song, if it's not a hit. And if Justin Bieber doesn't hear it and love it, and one of the reasons he did, fellow Canadian, right? Isn't Bieber Canadian? I think he is. So maybe that was one of the reasons why he heard it and liked it. But if it's not for those two things, we never know Call Me Maybe, which I'm sure some DJs might be grateful if they had never heard it. But to me, it packs my dance floor, so I don't care. I'm happy with that song.
Yep. Very funny.
Yep.
Very funny indeed.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Mike. If people would like to find, again, what's the best way for them to locate?
So, well, follow me on Facebook, because this is where I'm putting all these stories, is on my Facebook page. So if you track me down, if you're not already connected with me on Facebook, connect with me and follow me. And if you want to go back and find the old ones, like I said, just use the hashtag Today in Music, and you'll be able to find. And I think at this point, I've probably put about 80 of these posts are up already. So
nice.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there to sift through, filter through.
And on Facebook, you'd go search for Michael Walter.
I am Michael Walter on Facebook, right?
Right. Yes,
so.
Michael.
Yeah.
Yes, it isn't Mike. It's Michael.
Right.
So it's all spelled out. But yeah, go do a search. You'll be able to find that.
And if you friend me on Facebook, I know some people are really picky about who they accept friendship-wise. Here's my criteria. If you friend me and you have a picture of you in headphones, I figure you're a DJ and I accept your friendship immediately. I love being connected with DJs on social media. So I don't have to know you. I don't have to know anything about you. If you friend me and there's a picture of like a controller or you wearing headphones, accept. Like that's it. I'm pretty easy that way.
You're so easy, man.
Yeah, I am. I'm easy.
The rest of us, we've got this list of, okay, can you do these 10 qualifications?
Nope, don't care. If you're a DJ, I want to be connected with you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Mike, thank you very much for being with me tonight. For those of you watching, we will be coming back. I'll be back in a few seconds, but there will be more shows coming up in just a few minutes here on DJ
Thank you,
NTV.
John. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
No, you guys could continue to talk as far as I'm going to wrap up this show, We're back on live. Thank you guys for watching. In the chat room, I'm going to be putting the link for the next show. I've got Barry and Jordan there right here. Jordan's in Las Vegas, and Barry is up in the middle of Canada, which I believe the ice just went on the lake earlier today, but I'm not exactly sure. We're going to find out more about that. Then we're going to be talking about entertaining. We're going to be talking about games. We're going to be talking about what they're doing next year at because Jordan's in Las Vegas telling us he's getting ready for Mobile Beat Las Vegas. Right, yeah, he's in Las Vegas. I'm thinking he's got other things, but we'll just go with that story. And we'll be back in just a few minutes, gang, with our third show tonight. Again, link is, if I'd hit return, the link would go into the description. If you're watching us out on Facebook Live, thanks for watching there too. Check the description. It's got show 3 coming up here in just a couple of moments. Here we go.